about your brother-in-law's buck.
Yeah.
We can do that on the pod if you want.
I think we should. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about your buck, and then I want to talk about kind of some of the Weatherby stuff coming up, just like film wise.
Cool.
And a couple other things if we get to them. So
yeah, I'm down for however long, dude. I'm just butchering tonight. I got the butchering table set up.
Nice.
So got backstraps neck done last night. So yeah.
Good, dude. Yeah, I've been with everything we've gotten this season. I've just done the backstraps and like tenderloin stuff myself, staked them up, and then brought everything else to a butcher. And it's nice. It's a little bit expensive, but it's not like that bad. It's like $300 for a whole elk to get like sausages and like.
That's not too bad.
Roast. It's not. It's really not. And so, pretty sweet. But
yeah, I do all my own. I already have my head boiled up.
Really?
Yeah, I had it done in 24 hours after it was done being boiled. 23 hours since he got shot.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
So,
dude, that's sweet. That's hard because when you live in an apartment, because I just don't have like room or anything to do stuff myself sometimes. But
yeah, that's like my requirements for living. I have to have somewhere I can hang an elk. Like it could be elk quarters. Yeah, right. Doesn't have to be a whole elk, but like I got this little garage out back, so it's clutch.
Oh, nice. That's really nice, actually. Dang.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, dude, we're recording, so let's just hop into it.
Right on.
You've been hunting a bunch for deer this year, I know, and you've been on some new areas just because you just moved to Wyoming. Let's hear kind of your story, how this season went for you.
Oh yeah, man. I put in a lot of effort and wasn't being rewarded at all. I mean, we'll dive into kind of some individual hunts I had, but I saw over 100 does before I saw my first buck this season in a number of different locations. And there's some factors that I definitely made some mistakes going into it a little bit. Like the second trip I did was kind of a personal vendetta against a certain hunt from past. But yeah, let's see. I got my residency September 25th for Wyoming. So essentially I missed out on archery season here. But I did draw the Montana antelope archery only tag, that 900 tag. So I'm in Sheridan, Wyoming here. And so we're just 20, 30 minutes from the border. And it's like hour or two to a hunting spot, like realistically, because there's a res just north of us. And then it's Custer National Forest. So it's national forest. There's no antelope up in there. So just kind of got to get through that area. And I got to explore a lot of Montana. I hunted everywhere from Alzada down on the Wyoming, South Dakota border, a couple 100 miles north of there, all the way over to Fort Benton, Montana, north of Great Falls, and a bunch of stuff in between there. So got to chase lopes around with the bow, so got to get out and in between projects, which have been very busy. As you know, it's that time of year.
Oh, yeah.
So October 1st was deer hunt opener around here with a rifle. And so I took the afternoon off work, went out, saw a bunch of does, saw a bunch of hunters. And yeah, it's all new area. Never hunted. I've hunted in Wyoming 1 year before. So let's see, 3 years ago at 21, it would have been, me and my buddy Koby actually drew together mule deer tags, and we came down for opening weekend. And I was supposed to go out on a 10-day backpack trip with him the next 2 weekends from them, and I blew my knee out the day before that hunt. And so I never got to come down and fully do that hunt and experience it. And so I had this thing with this spot of wanting to go hunt it and knowing how good it is. And so I kind of made that my big hurrah, was taking a week off of work. Was just going to be getting back from Alaska, working like 10 days straight, filming mountain goat hunts and stuff. And so going hard. And so I took day off in between to kind of recuperate and made it out there. And I'd planned this hunt 3 weeks before. And so something with the new state is new regulations. And I dove into them, but I misread something on the season opening date of this particular unit. I was going to hunt 2 days before the new unit I wanted to actually hunt opened up. So I pull off on this
Dang.
BLM road. When I get over there, I'm like, I'm just gonna double check the regs. Like, I'm just not familiar with the area, just like this and that. I'm like, I read it like 5 times. I'm like, how did I mess this up?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
only unit in the area open for those next 2 days was a couple hour and a half north of there, so it wasn't too bad. And so
Right.
bombed into there, made it to the trailhead that night, was packing my bag up, and realized both my jet boils are sitting on the floor of my living room in my house. And
Oh no.
I have two of them, and I don't need to pay for jet boils either, one of those things. And so I had to drive into Cody the next morning and buy a jet boil. And then I made it in probably about 10 o'clock to this. Had to hike uh, within wilderness boundaries of that area. The tag was only valid in. So had quite a big hike in. And then found a cool knob at the front of this basin and glassed up 2 does at last light. It looked really productive, like some of the most productive deer country I've been in. And found some sheds. That old elk shed, that big giant I found one that's probably as old as us, honestly, and it's just half
Yeah.
disintegrated. And it was 350 type bull. So that's how it goes. I find big sheds when they're really old. It seems.
Right.
So hiked out of that spot. Didn't see anything the next morning or afternoon, and hiked out like early afternoon to hike in and glass for the evening in the spot I really wanted to hunt, which season opener was October 15th. Um, and so got my bag packed. I had 2.5 gallons of water because I didn't know if there was going to be water or not. Food for 5 days, was like committed. I was going to stay at minimum 3 days. And if I just wasn't turning up deer, excuse me, I was going to bomb out and try a different spot along the way. This is a special-ish hunt, as you know. It's cool to be able to hunt this on a general tag, but it isn't reliant on some factors. One of those being snow to push the deer into this certain corridor. And it was 75 that day I was hiking in, and it was brutally hot. So I was about 2,000 vertical feet up this hillside and over a mile and a quarter in like 3 hours. I was stopping the glass a little bit, but just brutal. And I can see the top. And it's a bunch, you're hiking up a spine ridge that is very vertical on both sides. So it kind of has all those rolls in it that are false summits. And I get to this next one and I just see this 100-yard spire on the ridge that is impassable. And I just look at it and I basically turn around. I'm like, nope. Like I walked up to it and I'm like, 65, 75 pound pack somewhere in there. You lose your balance. And it was certain death. Like it was vertical. So I just turned around and walked out because there was that whole ridge. There was no place to camp on. I couldn't have just camped there. But I needed to get up onto that flat spot that was 200 yards away from where I was standing to get to the zone, right? Like that was like I made it to that up that initial ascent into the zone. So it was heartbreaker. And talking with my buddy Koby, and I talked with him a little bit, and then just was realistic about it. I was like, that was 3 years to the day since I blew my knee out. And so I think there's something in me that really wanted to do that hunt. And then I realized that I made the mistake of not checking the external factors that make this hunt to see your deer numbers. So I decided to pull out and work the end of that week and roll my PTO into more productive time. So I think that's something that people should look at when they're like going into a hunt, is what are the external factors on for your ideal dates for that hunt, right? Like, is that something you ever look into?
Yeah. What do you mean by like external factors?
In this case, snow to push the deer into a certain zone, or maybe it's rut dates. Is like what kind of factors do you look when you're going into a deer hunt?
Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm looking at weather a lot and a little bit of moon cycles, but even if it's a bad moon cycle, I'm still gonna hunt.
Yeah,
I don't think it makes as much of a difference. Um, but then yeah, like this year we did not get like it was hot a lot.
yeah,
which I think played a big role in not finding as many bucks. I know it did for me. I think either there was no deer, or I just wasn't finding them because it was too hot. Um, but yeah, those are big factors. And then like I was hunting some brand new areas to me this year where I'd
Yeah.
run into guys who were like normally there's like 2 feet of snow by now and there's nothing up here. So like the deer are just not moving. And so it makes a big difference for sure.
Yeah.
Especially for spring bear months too.
Oh yeah, yeah,
We
especially with snow levels and stuff. I saw that this year when we went with the Onyx boys, Tyler and JD and I did, and it was such a light snow year that the bears were so dispersed you couldn't get a beat on them. Like we saw
Mm.
a sow and three cubs, I think the first evening or second evening. Then I don't think we ever saw another bear. It was just really tough
Wow.
hunting, and there was just no snow lines left, and so they could be where they want. Everywhere was green. It wasn't like there were green patches to target them. And I'm no bear hunter. I've bear hunted like a couple days in my life. Like one of them was when we did that trip together and stuff. But yeah, so I
Yeah.
definitely learned a lot of like lessons, and over the first couple hunts, and then I came back, and then I think I went out the next Monday, Tuesday instead of that. Or no, I worked the Thursday, Friday, and then I worked out all that next week and took off Friday. And a couple hour drive from Sheridan, went over into some Badlands, like super gnarly type country. And dude, I'll have to send you this picture. I'm actually gonna post it later this week. But I saw the most insane sunrise of my life out there. It was pretty wicked. And got there Friday evening. I took a half day. Or no, that's when it was still light enough I could drive there and get there with an hour of light left. So I hiked into a spot, and I was hiking in, and I saw three bobcats, I believe. They
Whoa.
90% sure bobcats. They could have been mountain lion kits, but I didn't get they were kind of silhouetted. They had a lot more bobcat look to them. Didn't see any deer that night. They were quite a ways away, and I texted a coworker because I didn't have enough service to Google. I'm like, "Hey, what's the regs on these?" And season wasn't opens, and you need a fur bear's license or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So otherwise, I'd have been chasing bobcats. I'd love a bobcat pelt. That'd be sweet.
That'd be sweet.
So yeah, the next day, I hiked into a spot, and what was that day? Oh yeah, okay. So I got up hour before shooting light, and I camped right at this creek bottom going into this super gnarly terrain. Like there were cliff walls lining the road that I was on. And so I start hiking up this creek bottom, and I got about a mile and a half in, and I'm like, should be too bad. And I'd looked at the topo on the creek and thought I could navigate it, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, the whole way in, there's like anywhere between 50 to 70 feet at the lowest to 200 feet cliffs, just like lining it. It was wicked. And I'm just walking in the moonlight. I didn't even have a headlamp on. It was cool. And
Oh, that's cool.
I get 3/4 of a mile in, and I hit like a 15-foot waterfall that's vertical. Once again, I'm like,
Oh,
ah, dang it, can't get there. But at that point, it had kind of opened up on the right hand side a little bit. And so I went about 100 yards back and just kind of found this crack I could work up. It was more of a hill, and it had like this little grass crack, and worked up it and was rewarded with pretty epic view and 15 does that morning. I collared doe. I found a collared doe. That was cool. Um, just then I worked through a bunch of country, just like glass and shadows for hours, like trying to find something in bed, just kind of pushing through country, maybe bump something, maybe see sneak on something in its bed, and didn't turn up anything. Went into a new spot that afternoon and the next evening, and then that or next day didn't really turn much up. Ran into some guys. I went in for dinner to a bar and ran into dude. The amount of Wisconsin hunters out here is crazy. Like 50%
oh,
out of state hunters are from Wisconsin. So
yeah.
some good guys though, most of the time. And they were with a guide, and the one guy shot real nice 150 155, 160-inch buck first morning. They were out there, and then another guy shot a okay one. And so they said they weren't seeing a lot of bucks though. So I was just like, dang. So that next evening is when, um, for 7 hours that day, I just sat. I was probably 100 yards off the road, but in this basin that's like everyone drives by. It's just, you can tell, like it's not too far in. It's gnarly enough looking. Like I'm sure people glass in there every once in a while, but I just pounded this thing with a 95 millimeter Swaro for hours. A couple different vantages. The Sig 16 image stabilized, the Sig 50s, like just bunch of scanning, and didn't turn a single animal up. And so pretty rough going for that part. And so
Dang.
uh, then that brings me to this last weekend, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, I went to a completely different spot in the state where it was actually the rifle mule deer opener. And to be hunting muleys in November in Wyoming, not a lot of units you can do that in. And so I
Yeah.
was going, and it wasn't just a muley tag; it was um, whitetail too. And I knew there were a bunch of like mountain whitetail in this area. Um, and the big kicker on it too is I knew there was a low density of elk, but the elk tag was open for either sex as well. And so I could hunt some elk,
Nice.
which I guess I skipped out on. I did hunt for elk for 2 days. Um, I guess there's a weekend in between that last deer one and this deer one. So bombed over there, and turned out they'd gotten about, I don't know how much because it'd settled. I was walking into everywhere from 8 inches to a foot of snow. So I'd say they got maybe a foot and a half of snow over there. So I was pumped for that. I love
Nice.
hunting in the snow. I grew up a
Oh, me
rifle
too.
hunter. I know how to find animals that time of year in certain zones, and so I just am more successful if there's some bad weather, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I was pretty stoked about that. Um, Found a couple does in the morning hunt, just kind of worked some ridges. There's some clear cuts. It's kind of rolling mountains. It's not like steep mountains at all. Cool country. Saw some whitetail does, some muley does. Then went to a different spot for the early afternoon. Hiked in there. I found my best whitetail shed actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pretty solid buck. Like,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, dude.
So it was
Nice.
sitting tines down, and it was just sitting under a tree, and I like walked right on top of it basically, and had a couple does. Just did some sitting, some still hunting, just kind of a couple different strategies, just trying to feel the area out because I had 4 days to hunt. That was Friday, and I had the next 3 days off, like fully committed. It was only 2 hours, 2.5 hours from home, so I was driving home Monday night, like was fully committed. And
Yeah.
so I had a spot also pinned out of that forest more in the lowlands, about an hour away. And I was like, I'm just gonna go heat check this tonight and kind of cross it off. Like I know what I'm getting here. I know what I can get into, especially after finding that whitetail shed gave me some confidence. Like, oh, like I can switch to whitetail mode. Like I'm good killing a big whitetail buck. And I cut some elk
Yeah.
tracks. I cut 2 sets of bull tracks. I'm like, okay, there's a couple
Dang.
elk in this general area. I can come back and put some time in. But I bomb out to the state section. It has a river bottom running through it, through the middle of it, and I'm coming from the west. And the east side has a big timbered ridge on it. And so I got there with like hour of light left, hour and a half of light left, hour till sunset, and 20 minutes into the sit, I see 15 muley does just work down this hillside. There's a bunch of antelope everywhere, and I see them come down to the river bottom. I'm like, oh, nice bait. Like, I bet 20 minutes, there's going to be a buck following those does because I'd heard stuff was starting to rut. So, sure as
Yeah.
shit, man, that buck just came down 20 minutes later, and it was 3/4 of a mile away, and I just glad threw the SIGs up and was like, ooh, he's big rutted up neck. Like, I think I'd shoot that buck. Couldn't get a good view of the antlers, so I honestly took off running. I was like, you know, and
Yeah.
because there at that point it was sun was just setting, and so it took me about 15 minutes to go over there, and 10 minutes, and got to 460 and had this nice little knob I set up on and looked at it. I'm just like, man, he's rutting those does so hard running around. Like I don't feel great with this shot. I'm just gonna close it. I can, like, they're not going anywhere. So there's a knob in between, like, knob. It's like, the creek's kind of winding, and there's those like sagebrush little ridges. So there's one of those about 250 from the middle of the herd. So I ranged a doe at like 220 and one at 260. So I knew general area they were in. That buck had disappeared rutting a doe, and I'm just like kind of peek my head up, and this doe is just staring me down at like 200 yards. I'm like, oh, dang it. And she starts walking to me. She's walking right at me. And she walks
Dang.
to like 80 yards and like stands there and
No
then
way.
keeps walking. I'm like, oh no, this isn't. She's literally going to walk all the way to me because she couldn't see me really. She just
Yeah.
saw something. And so that buck appears rutting a doe hard. And I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to bust this doe. And like, I just crawl, like, take like 4 steps up, set the gun down, zoom the scope in, flick the safety off, and that doe darts left, and he's frontal, and I just hammer the trigger, and he just drops. It happened in like
Nice.
6 seconds. It was like super fast, but I'm like, I'm only gonna get a short opportunity, and it was a pretty cool experience, and I was pretty stoked because first buck I'd seen this season, over
Yeah.
100 plus does, and not a bad buck, not my biggest, not my smallest, but it was
Yeah.
one of those
Good
things.
luck.
I'm a believer in, like, shoot what gets you excited in that moment. Like, I wanted to shoot that buck, and so I did, and yeah, it's rewarding. First animal not in Montana, and then first
Oh,
buck I've shot in 3 years, I think, because just it had a bad situation on a big buck last year. And then year before, I never saw a deer that I was willing to put my tag on. Um, so felt good and get some meat in the freezer. Been butchering it up. I butcher all my own meat and vacuum seal it, grind it, make burger, summer sausage, do that all myself and do my own skulls. So it's like very rewarding process, right? Like that's one of the things I love about it is you can do everything from like finish to end.
right. That's cool. So do you still have an elk tag then? Any elk season open
Yeah.
still?
So tomorrow's my last day for getting a bull in this area. So not looking like a bull this year, unfortunately. But there's general tag. Wyoming has very interesting season dates. There's a lot of shotgun starts. Every unit's different, and then some of your tags and your general tag and a lot of units can, like, it's going to roll into a cow tag through December 31st in a number of units.
Right.
Um, and so I'll be able to chase cows um, with my girlfriend, and she'll have a deer tag that we can do on whitetail until November 31st. She doesn't show up until
Nice.
like mid-November, so we got a little time to get some other stuff down. But yeah,
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, Idaho's kind of similar, more similar to Wyoming, where like some units are still open for rifle season right now, like till like mid-November, and then but most of them are closed, and so there's kind of like some overlap in different things in each unit. You kind of have to look and make sure because some units also like half of the unit closes, so you have to make sure you know like what the closures
oh,
are,
interesting.
so that you know like where to hunt. It's only like a few units, but yeah, it's kind of funky. So um, kind of similar there, but
And you still got your
yeah,
deer tag, right?
I do.
Yeah,
So
and that turns into some
um,
late season archery opportunities eventually, right?
yep,
That's
it
sweet.
does. There's a few units that are still open for late art that open up for late archery around mid-November, and they go into December.
Nice.
And then yeah, pretty cool. And then there's a couple of units that are open right now for rifle. So I might go out like this weekend or something and try out some new areas that I've never been to. But
It's year of the new areas,
yeah,
man.
dude, I love it
I
actually.
do too,
Um,
but man, I just got to get a bead on these elk down here, and then I'll be fine. Like, but just getting
yeah,
a bead on them is like been the tough. I mean, I've only elk hunted 2 days since I got here. Like, I just haven't had time this
yeah,
season. Um,
yeah,
that's what I got. Colorado project coming up here. We leave Friday for a week with Adam and Brenda. Um, so
Nice.
going there, gonna be hunting third rifle season at 10 and 12,000 feet. So that's gonna be fun. But
Mule deer, right?
yeah, mule
Mule
deer
deer.
and
Yeah.
elk. So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Nice.
that'll be good.
That'll be cool.
And then we roll into duck season for like content stuff over here. Um, so I'll be doing some of those, and then DJ will be filming some of those, which is nice. He's getting
That's good.
lot more skilled with the camera. He filmed John Solberg's bison hunt. I just watched the first draft of that film today. He's putting it together, and it's really solid. It's going to turn out pretty cool. So
Nice. That's good. So, and you guys have a film. Is it out yet, or is it coming out soon? It's the Blacktail film.
yeah, so that came out yesterday,
Oh,
about
nice.
26 hours ago now, and so that was from last November, like 15th ish for a week. Went up to Kodiak chasing black-tailed deer and then also sea ducks with our new Sork shotgun that we were working on launching, getting launch assets for and everything. So able to combo that
Nice.
hunt. And then, so we'll have a duck mini series starting this year called Endurance Tested Field Proven. That's kind of our shotgun slogan. And so we're starting a
Yeah.
mini series. So the Kodiak ducks will be part of that. And that first one will drop in 2 weeks. And then we have like a Montana one, and then a Colorado Wyoming combo one, and then I think a snow geese one. So we got some good stuff coming down the pipeline for films, but then Texas Aoudad film is the last big game one. That won't roll out till like show season because it's kind of like that time of
Okay.
year, right? Which when we
Yeah.
strategically kind of try and plan our launches of films to pertaining viewership of what people are going to be interested in
Time
wanting to
there.
watch that time of year. Like September, what's everyone think about? Elk. You know,
Yeah.
August is kind of like sheep time. October, mule deer. I mean, elk in October too. So just try to be strategic on how you plan things out and launch them. Is something I've learned a lot about since being here. So yeah.
Yeah. Nice. That's cool. I'm excited to see kind of that stuff, and I'm excited to watch that film that you guys just released
Yeah,
um,
it's
on the
it's
Blacktail
good.
stuff. So
It's I was editing Gritty's footage as well for him, and like we hunted in a couple different
oh,
groups, and so editing someone else's footage is always tough when you don't, especially when you weren't there and didn't know exactly how it happened. Um,
yeah,
like it's a little different when it's you, me, and Kincaid like all together, and we're experiencing the same thing, and we're all capturing it together. But it's a different thing when you weren't there to experience it and be able to help that story along by knowing the little details behind it that others don't, right?
for sure. Yeah, I
So
know exactly what you mean.
like
It's a lot harder to put the story together.
the film we released before this was New Zealand, and like that's my best work yet. Personally, I
Yeah,
wholeheartedly believe that. Like I feel like I crushed that film. It was a really cool experience, and I feel like I was able to do the experience justice and tell that story. So that's always a rewarding feeling, right?
oh yeah, yeah, that's good. That one was good. I like that one. I
Thanks.
watched that
Yeah.
one. So, yeah, awesome, dude. You know something funny? So I've got my weather beat from you guys. I got the Model 307 Alpine CT in the seven Remington or the seven PRC.
Yeah, buddy.
So I've shot it a bunch and I've taken it on all my hunts since I've got it, but it's killed two animals already and I haven't shot either one of them.
That's awesome.
So,
It's putting some animals
okay,
down,
so
but yeah, you gotta get one
I
under
know,
your belt.
right? So my wife's elk that she shot,
Hmm.
and then my brother-in-law his deer.
Yeah.
Um, both of them shot that gun. My brother-in-law's deer was at 550, like smoked him, perfect shot, one shot on that buck, and then my wife's elk was at 250, but just ended up being how it was. We were pretty close, which was really good for her
Yeah.
first one. So
That's awesome. Yeah, why
yeah,
shoot far if you don't have to is kind of a strategic
it's true.
thing that like Tyler and I always talk about is like if you can get closer, but if that's what your shot's at, like build a good rest, like that's key, be comfortable. like if you have time and the animal's feeding, like I'll dry fire a couple shots, make sure I'm feeling good and steady. And so that's what I shot my deer with too, is a 307 Alpine CT, but I have mine chambered in 300 Weatherby. Love that
Nice.
cartridge. And
Yeah.
yeah, the backcountry Banish suppressor on. First time hunting suppressed, personally. Been around it a lot since I got here, and it's a game changer. I love it. Uh, hearing protection, especially with a lot of guns you're running a brake on these days, and that just makes it so loud. Um,
Yeah.
my dad actually shot a cow elk second day of the season in Montana, and he has a Vanguard Talon 300 Weatherby, and it has a brake on it. And I told him, I was like, "You're gonna want to bring some earplugs along when you shoot this." And he's like, "Yeah, all right, yeah, whatever." And he shot his cow. I was like, "So did you put earplugs in?" He's like, "No, I didn't even hear it." I'm like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" He's like, "I didn't notice anything. My ears are just fine." I was like,
Oh
"Holy cow!"
man.
He wasn't in any timber or anything, so that does make a difference. But like,
Okay.
it's just kind of funny. I was like,
That is funny.
Yeah,
Those are loud with those brakes on them.
yeah.
Like,
But that
yeah, it's
AccuBrake
crazy.
DST that's on the CT is a phenomenal brake. It actually the
Dude.
recoil mitigation that brake has is better than my suppressor. Personally, I think by a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but also that recoil pad that's on that Peak 44 stock, like it's 3D printed, and when you first like kind of touch it and feel it, you're like, man, this is hard. This isn't gonna do a lot. But like
Yeah.
the design behind it actually mitigates more recoil than a lot of other things on the market. Like it's actually pretty nice. It's nice to your shoulder.
I was very surprised at like how much recoil that gun or how little recoil that gun has.
Yeah,
Because like compared to like I would go shoot my other gun that I've got and seven PRC, right? Same thing. But like my shoulder's sore after shooting it.
yeah,
And then I go shoot the Weatherby and it's like so much better. It's crazy.
it is. That's like
So
I shot a 6.5 RPM, but it was just capped. It didn't have a brake or anything on it. That thing
yeah.
kicks like a mule when it doesn't have a brake on. But like, luckily that recoil pad's good. But I was shocked when I shot that one with the just the thread cap on. I was like, whoa. And that's
Yeah.
I just got a new 6.5 RPM in the Mark 5 action. Did I tell you that?
Oh yeah, you
Yeah,
did.
so pretty stoked about that one. It's basically a custom. It's that Peak 44 Bastion stock, the more vertical grip that's like on our CTs, and then it's a
Mm-hmm.
BSF carbon barrel on it in the Mark 5 action. It's gonna be a shooter. So gonna get a new Leupold scope to put on top of it. I love Leupold scopes. They're awesome. So good people over there
Yeah,
too.
there are good. Those are good scopes. Um,
Let's hear
the
about your.
self timing.
Oh, what's that?
Oh yeah, one more thing. The self timing brake on those BSF barrels that you guys have is really nice too,
Yes.
because you don't have to use a crush washer. Like it's like super easy to install.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's a big plus. You don't have to go to a gunsmith or anything, or have someone do it that really knows what they're doing. It's foolproof. Just
yeah,
make sure you put the vents to the side and not up and down.
right. Yeah,
I actually saw
exactly.
someone had like tagged us in something that had it on like vertically and messaged him. I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, just so you know, that goes the other way."
Dang.
But yeah, let's hear
That is
about
funny.
your brother-in-law's deer hunt. I haven't heard that story yet.
Yeah. So Um, it's one of the seasons, one of the units in my home state where it's open a couple weeks longer than most of them. So like most seasons kind of close like October 24th, I think. This one is open until October 31st, and there's some that are open longer than that. So it's kind of one of those middle range units. And personally, I've never hunted in a unit that's open longer than the 24th. So I was excited because like you kind of get into a little bit of rutting action
Yeah.
towards the end of October there. My brother-in-law, we were looking at like he's from out of state. He's never killed a big game animal before, so we were just looking at options for him, and we kind of missed the deadline for over-the-counter non-resident tags. So I told him just to put in for this unit, and it's a pretty easy to draw unit, even for a non-resident. And so he drew it super easy, and I'd never been to this area, and I was looking at a bunch of stuff about it on Go Hunt and like scouting a bunch on Onyx. Like, should we backpack in? There's a few spots so we could get a few miles in there. Should we just road hunt it? Like, how should we do it? And so, um, as I was looking, a lot of the information I found on the unit was like this unit has a lot of road hunters. There's a ton of people hunting it, a ton of locals, a lot of out of staters that come in here. And I went up a week before my brother-in-law got there just to go scout around, and I wanted to backpack in a couple places and see if I could find any deer. And like, it's so true. I pulled up um like mid-morning, and there's like tons of hunters. Like, I've never seen more people camped off the side of the road in camp spots hunting. It was insane.
That's wild.
So I'm like, freak, it's crazy. But I was like, but I'm gonna go hike up this like in like 3 or 4 miles back in there. I should be okay. I don't think there's gonna be as many people back there. And from where I wanted to go, like the only way to get in there is you have to like cross a river and then hike up in there, and it's super steep. So I figured that'd keep some people away. But even like I parked, there was a couple of trucks parked close to me. I crossed the river, I hike up the hill, and there was still people camped like at the top of the hill, like backpacking in. So it's just a spot where there's enough tags, and there's a ton of deer though. So that was really cool because like I hadn't seen a buck since the season started in where I usually hunt. So I came out here, and even though there was still people, like there was still a lot of people, I was finding more deer and more bucks than I'd found like anywhere in the state, which was really
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
But no big bucks. I was just finding like 130, 140 inch, like 3 points, 3x4s, tons of forkies, right?
Yeah.
But I'm still 4 or 5 miles deep and just finding a bunch of these deer, which for my brother-in-law, I'm like, this is perfect because he's never killed anything. Like, we'll just find him something that's like a decent 4 pointer or something, and hopefully find a bigger buck.
Is this a general
And
tag for you or not as a resident?
yeah,
Oh,
it's a
nice.
general
Yeah.
tag for the resident, so really nice. Which is part of the reason why there's so many people there, is because it's like one of the few units that's still open
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Okay.
after most of them close, right? So it's kind of like a backup spot for some people, and some people, a lot of people live close by there. But then there's a lot of non-residents that hunt it too. It was probably like 50-50. I was
Mm.
running into, actually, I probably ran into more non-residents than residents in there. But I also ran into some guys where they were like normally in this spot there is 2 feet of snow already, and like big bucks are migrating off the mountain, and there
Mm.
was literally no snow when I was up there. So um, I knew the weather was going to get a little colder, and we might get a little bit of snow the next week, which is what I was hoping for to get some deer moving.
Yeah.
So that those first few days, I didn't see anything that I was going to shoot, just a bunch of decent bucks. So I came back up with my brother-in-law and his dad. We packed in there. I left my camp set up just because I'm like, we're going to come back here anyways. I'll just pack up like some extra water and whatever and I'll leave my camp, save some weight. So we got back up there. There was like some guys with llamas camped in the bottom of the canyon below our camp, and then some other guys camped up the ridge. But luckily, kind of where I wanted to hunt, no one was really hunting that little section, which was good. So we got in there. First couple days, we just kind of saw a bunch of dinker bucks again, but we were seeing tons of does. Like, we were probably seeing 50, 60 does every day. So I'm like,
Dang.
it's the last few
That's
days of the hunt.
awesome.
Like, it was really awesome, actually. I'm like, it's just a matter of time until these bucks start like rutting harder. And we were seeing like small bucks rutting, so I'm like,
That
we just gotta get
switch will
like
get flipped.
exactly. I'm like, it's either gonna we're either gonna time it perfect and we're gonna like smash it on these last couple of days of the hunt, or like we might just miss it. But I'm like, we're still seeing some bucks, so that's good. Um, so we get to day 3, the evening of day 3 of our hunt, and we were glassing on this knob where most of the stuff we were glassing is like the minimum. I mean, there was a few faces that were like 200, 300 yards, but then but then it was like across the canyon, 1,000 yards
Oh,
or more. And it was just like, we're just gonna glass a ton of country and try to find some bucks in like somewhere we can go after them tomorrow or like maybe tonight if we have time, right? But it was great country, and so we're sitting there glassing and finding does here and there, and all of a sudden I saw 2 bucks. I was just with the SIGs. They were 800. They were like 900, 950,
yeah.
and they were like across this hillside, like something had spooked them because they were like trotting, and then they'd stop and like take a breath and look back, and then they trot some more. And I threw the spotter up, and the first buck was like it was a 4 point, but it was really tall. It wasn't very wide. Probably like 140, 150-inch buck, but one of the better bucks we had seen so far. And then the second buck walked in, it was like a 165-inch dark horned, like great buck, 4 point, and he had 2 splits on his back fork, so he was a 5x5
Oh, heck
basically.
yeah.
And like stud buck. I'm like, oh dude, like I'm like, come here, we gotta like try to figure out how to get on these bucks. And they're 950 yards across the canyon. And my brother-in-law comes over, he's like, dude, let's double up on these bucks. I'm like, freak, yeah, let's do it.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
So, this is awesome. So we like book it down the ridge to try to like cut these deer off because they're going down the canyon, but on the opposite ridge, opposite faces us.
Yeah, yeah.
So So we book it down the ridge. We get to around 800 yards, and it's starting to get dark. The sun was basically like setting at this point, and we were working down. And those bucks, I think they saw us. I'm pretty sure they saw us because they kind of like stopped moving the direction they were moving, and they kind of like circled back and went in with a group of does. But we couldn't get any closer than 800 yards, and it was just getting too dark to shoot them. Like, and it was they were a ways away, and they ended up just kind of moving into this patch of thick burnt trees and a lot of bushes. And I saw the big buck bed down, and then the smaller 4 point was started chasing a doe, but it was just too late. We just
Yeah.
didn't have the time, and it was too dark. Like I like tried to put the rifle up just to see, and I'm like, yeah, well, there's no way like that we're gonna shoot these bucks right now. But I was like, okay, like they're probably gonna be here tomorrow. Like if in this canyon, as long as no one disturbs them, which I don't think they will, because they were like closer to camp than we were. We had to hike way around back to camp that night.
They were closer than we
It's
were.
kind of funny. They were like between us and camps. I'm like, okay. But we got up the next morning, and we went on the same face that they were on, but we were above them, and we were glassing down each little draw to try to find them. And it's super steep. It's lots of burnt dead trees. It was just in an old burn, and so it's like it's really hard to find deer in this
Yeah,
stuff because you had to
yeah.
get the right angle, and like they could be anywhere down there. So the whole morning, I just like kept moving and glassing, and I saw a lot of does, but I didn't find the bucks. But I found a little finger ridge that dropped down that was kind of the highest ridge on that face, and I figured if we get down that, like halfway down, we'd be at the same elevation as those bucks, and eventually they might move that evening and like move out onto a face we can see them. So we went and sat there all day, and I think it was like I want to say it was like 3:30 or 4:30 or something. And that tall 4 point, well, we've seen does get up and feed like all day. Like there's 2 does up there feeding, and then they bed down. We see a group of does start feeding down the bottom, and they were just does everywhere. Um, and there was a group of does feeding of like 6 does down in the bottom of the canyon. And as we're glassing, I caught this tall 4 point going straight down the hill, about our same elevation, but he was moving super quick, like through the trees at like 500 yards. And he was just going like straight to these does. He knew like right where he was
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
So I watched him, and I'm like, okay. So like my brother-in-law got set up on the gun, and he just beelined it to these does, and he started chasing these does around 550 yards. And he got set up super steady on this log, smoked him, and I was like, all right, like we should. I was like, we got to. So there's a few things right now. So like our camp is on the top of the hill, and we just killed this deer at the bottom of the canyon, and it's like a 2,000 or yeah, it's like a 2,000 foot difference between the deer and camp. And the deer is in a canyon that we could probably hike out of this canyon
Yeah,
all the way
yeah.
back to the car, but we're gonna come out like 2 miles down the road from where the truck's parked. And I'm like, that's worth it. If we can
I
just get to
take
the
two
road, we'll
miles
be
over
good.
2,000 vert.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, well, let's first of all let's wait a couple hours and see if this bigger buck comes out because it's like I'll shoot this other buck 'cause he's a nice buck, and then let's go get camp, pack camp down to the bottom, get this deer, and we'll pack out in the morning. And I waited there for like 2.5 more hours, and that buck never showed up. So about sunset, I mean, I could have waited longer, but we kind of wanted to get out that next morning, and so I didn't want to wait too long and just like hold us up.
Yeah.
The next day was Halloween, and my brother-in-law has a wife and a kid that he wanted. He's like, if we can get it done before Halloween, that'd be awesome, just so I can get back and spend it with them. I was like, that's fair enough. So um, we grabbed camp, went down. The word, dude, like the hardest thing sometimes is like finding an animal after you kill it, right? Because especially when it's a long ways away and it got dark on us. I had pictures and I had like where I think he was on Onyx, but sometimes it's so hard to tell. So it still took us like 2 hours to find him
Oh,
after we got down because it didn't look as steep. We got down there and it was like way steeper than I thought it was. And I'm looking for like landmarks and trees that look like or like dead logs that because I took a lot of videos and pictures, but it's still when it's dark, it's so hard. And um, eventually found him and got him taken care of, and then packed him down to the bottom because we stashed our camp at the bottom.
yeah, yeah.
And, we just threw up our camp, cowboy camping. It was like 1 o'clock by this point, and we kind of did the math, and we decided we have to leave at 4:30 if we want to make it back in time for him to catch a flight back to his family. So we're like, hey, we got like 3 hours of sleep. Let's just like throw our bags out and let's just we don't need to set up a tent, right? And we woke up at 4:30 and there was like an inch of snow, and we kind of just like yard sailed our stuff because we're like we're
Yeah.
gonna pack it all up, and like all of our stuff's like buried in like a half inch of snow. So we're like, oh man.
Oh,
So everything's soaking
dude.
wet, but we just like throw everything in our packs, and uh, and then we book it out of there. And it took us a few hours. It was like, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I think it was like 3.5 miles back to the road.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had a super nice group of guys give me a ride back to my truck, and then I drove back and picked them up and stuff. So um, super fun.
Yeah, fun
Like we did
adventure, no
it was
doubt.
yeah,
That's cool seeing
it
all
was
those
both a
deer
bear.
too.
Oh, dude, it was awesome. Like going from seeing like no deer in some of the units that I hunt, like by my house, and going over there, other side of the state, and finding like deer everywhere was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, it's a spot that I would probably hunt again if there was a little more weather. Just
Yeah,
because, like,
yeah,
if it was like a foot or two of snow, it would have been so epic. But it was cool.
yeah, no doubt.
It was fun, dude. I forgot like how fun it is. I mean, I hunt new areas all the time, but like that one was kind of fun just because I'm like I actually found like I'm pretty proud of myself for going there into a totally new spot and still finding like a nice buck, like 160 plus inch buck. Like that's a good buck. Most people don't ever even see that kind of buck like sometimes in their whole life. And so for me being able to find like multiple bucks this year that were over that or like just mature bucks, even some of them in new places, I was like pretty stoked about that. Even
Yeah,
though we didn't kill them,
yeah,
still cool.
yeah. Always good to see big animals like that, and
Yeah.
gives you a sense of pride. And like you're like, I can do this. I can hunt. That's where like my hunting season this year, I was like, I'm the worst hunter ever. I don't know what I'm doing. Like you get into that. But also, I didn't have that mindset though. Like I had confidence every time I was going out hunting. Like I told myself, I'm like, you're gonna find a big buck and kill it. And I think like it wasn't like cockiness. It was like a, speak it into existence, manifest it type of deal, but also like just having confidence that in your spot. Because if you're in like the wrong attitude up on the mountain, like you might miss that buck, right? Like, but if you have the right attitude, like you might take a 3 hour nap in the middle of the day rather than glassing the shadows when they're going to rebed type of deal. So just having a good mindset going into the hunt and is a big thing.
Yeah. I think that it's like it's a mindset. So Tyler Geiger has talked about this on one of his podcasts the other day with Adam Grenda, I think, the guy from the bush pilot
Yeah.
dude from Alaska. Um, and it's like, are you going to the woods just to like have a good time and like experience, like have the experience, or are you going there to like kill something?
Yeah.
Like, for sure, there's like both parts of it, and you want to have a good time, but when it's over, it's like people use the excuse of like oh like it was a good experience, like that's really all we're here for. It's like no dude, you're actually like there to kill something. So it's like while you're out there, like give it all you got, like put it 100%, get up before light, and like do all the things that are gonna kill a big deer. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but at least you're like striving for that, and you're not just like giving up on the mountain
Yeah.
because you just feel like you're not gonna find something. It's like that's not how you kill big stuff, and or that's not how you kill
Anything.
stuff in general.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. So mindset's big, especially when you're
It's
out there
huge.
for, who knows, a week at a time. Sometimes it's just like every day you got to get out of bed, and you're probably going to bed late too, because if you miss like the best times of hunting are first thing in the morning, end of the evening, like a lot of times in these type of hunts. Back growing up, actually, we called prime time, like in our area, like 9 to like 10:30, 11. A lot of times there'd just be like a lot of elk movement at that time in this certain spot. So also feeling out the
Yeah.
spot and seeing when the movement is helps.
Right.
So
Yeah, I kind of found that as we moved into the deer rut, that like a lot of the deer movement was later in the day, like 10, 11 o'clock,
yeah, it's
which
not,
was
yeah,
surprising to
yeah, it's not that first light. It's kind of that secondary, like after the sun's fully up, all the thermals have changed, this and that, and they're getting up and
me.
just
Yeah.
kind of meandering around.
Yeah. But
You got any?
well, good dude.
You got any new gear you've been using and putting to the test this season that you're like stoked on? I know I have a couple new pieces that caught my eye.
Dude. I'm trying to think right now. Um, got the new rifle. Been
Yeah.
carrying that around. Um, I not a ton of new stuff. Been like for new this year is like the tripod, the Teton tripod,
Oh
the
yeah.
Peak 44 tripod.
Are you liking that as much as I
Oh,
thought you would?
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the trekking poles I've used those more than I thought I would actually,
Yeah.
and yeah, that thing's been sweet.
Nice.
Um, these new mics, the DJI Go mics,
Yeah.
like on my last hunt, I didn't even bring a shotgun mic. I just used this
Really.
on camera, and actually it worked pretty good. You just have to like turn it on and off every time you want to record a video, but it was pretty nice to use them. So I might be kind of trying to use them more often.
I
Um,
think that this next hunt I have, I'm gonna try and do dual channels and run one of each on
yeah,
my S3. I gotta experiment
yeah,
with that for a day or two here this week and just kind of get it dialed in before I go do it on a big hunt. And also, this next hunt, I've decided I'm going back to S-Log 3.
nice, yeah.
So
That's funny. I'm not filming in log right now
you're not,
for most of my stuff. No, just because. Well, I don't know. I
dude.
haven't been
I don't
because
know. I love it and I hate it. Like
me too.
I've been really like gotten a lot better and dove down the color grading a lot more lately
Yeah,
and gotten a lot better at it and using LUTs. Dude, that LUT pack you sent me, dude, I use those all the time. That's all I use. There were a lot of good ones
nice.
in
Yeah,
there. And so I kind of want to do it for this hunt in Colorado. But also, I've been shooting in two other picture profiles on the Sony's 11 and 3. And 11, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's basically, I think, just like normal, like without a picture profile, but has a little bit more like contrast, saturation, just like a little more true, almost.
nice.
I picked that one up from
Yeah.
Matt Lee and Logan from Hush. And then Picture Profile 3, when we went to Kodiak, I shot in that like S Gamut 3 or something. Or
Uh-huh.
S Cinetone. S Cinetone. And it's kind of like a middle ground between S Log and Nothing. Like it has more of a dynamic range than Nothing, but not as much as S Log, but it's a little more true to color than S Log. And it's kind of nice to manipulate. So
That's kind of cool.
yeah. But yeah, for me,
Nice.
I got new Peaks gators, those Peaks equipment
Oh,
gators.
did you?
Dude, love them.
Yeah.
Best gator I've ever used. Big fan of those so far. And then Spartan bipods for the rifle. That's why I
Oh,
shot my
dude, I
buck
want
off,
to.
that javelin. And then I have this other one called the spring buck. It's like a kneeling sitting one, or yeah, like
Okay.
kneeling sitting. And it's super light, and it has like where it comes up to the gun, it's bendy right here where the legs
Oh,
start. And so
I
you
know.
can like put one leg out wider if you're on like a hillside, or like get like tighter up taller. Like it's super versatile. I mean, I've like played around with it a bunch while I've been out, and like when I sat down at a spot, just like kind of set it up and practice with it. It seems pretty nice, and it's like very, very lightweight. So those have been cool.
Yeah.
Other than that, nothing crazy. Yeah. The
Yeah.
CT.
I've been using the Bino visor a bunch, just
Oh
like
yeah.
testing out new prototypes.
Nice.
Yours are on your way,
I'm
by the way. I
excited to
just
get
shipped them
them.
out today.
I could have
So
used them a couple different times muley hunting, just like when I was glassing into the shade, with those SIGs.
yeah,
My 16 powers do pick up a lot of light refraction, and
yeah, they do.
the 10s are a lot better. I love my 10s, dude. Those have actually become more of a favorite than my 16s. I have the 10 power SIGs.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna get the 18s next
Oh,
and
really?
sell the 16s or give them to Sierra or something, because the 18s are the new 18s, like it's better glass, better coatings. They're a little bulkier, but they're 18 over 16, and I don't own a spotting scope and I don't carry one. And like eventually I want to get the Swirl 65, but that's like a couple of years in the making of saving for it. It's so expensive.
Yeah.
So uh
Yeah.
those 18s will be rad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad deal, especially if you have the tens. Like there were some times glassing where it's like I had some a little bit like I
I
had some
carry them
tens instead
both
of six.
at the same time.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would for sure
Because
if I
yeah,
had them.
there's a lot of spots that are so close to 16s, and also the 10s let in more light than the 16s do. Like you can use them a
Right.
little bit later. I often start with those, do a lot of scanning, try and pick up that movement, and then dive in with the 16s and break stuff down. Like it's kind of become a new strategy that's been, I can't say that successful this year in finding deer, but like it feels like it's working out at least.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, dude. Well, good. I'm gonna wrap up because I got something to get to right now, but we can stay in chat for a second. But thanks for hopping on and listening, everyone, and we'll catch you guys next week.